Foxtrot. Thank you. They've asked me to introduce this gentleman. He does comic books. I don't know what these things are. But they tell me he's a big deal. So I assume that means he writes, you know, Richie Rich or Betty and Veronica. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Matt Fraction.
Double rainbows to you, Woodstock. Double rainbows to all of you. So in Portland, I had to follow Molly, and now I have to follow Rick Track. So I've clearly pissed Will off. And Will, I'm sorry. All right, so the slide projector's being a little witchy, so bear with me if this goes horribly off the rails. This is called The Batman Dreams of Hieronymus Machines. Hi. My name is Matt Fraction, and I write comic books for a living, and it is a ridiculously wonderful way to make a living. And the first... It's turned on. There we go. The first Marvel comic I wrote was that one. And in it, a guy called the Punisher, who is a guy who punishes stuff, kills a guy called a Stiltman, who is a guy on stilts, by shooting him there in the taint with a bazooka. Thank you. This is going to be super, super classy, by the way. It's really highbrow, like New Yorker shit, so get ready. But, so I got to wondering, you know, spoilers. Why, Stiltman, of all the D-list losers in the Marvel Universe, why, when I got to blow one of them up in the taint with a bazooka, did I think, it's got to be Stiltman? Who is goofy, and ultimately was kind of what I was trying to say with the Punisher book, which ultimately was about how weird it is to have guys like Punisher killing guys like Stiltman, like where you have a psycho killer and a guy who like robs the banks on the 30th floor or whatever. You know, he was on stilts. Wilbur Day was his name, and come on, I'm pointing. Double rainbows, come on. It gets better. Look, even Stiltman knew he sucked. But it stuck with me, like the why of it all. Why not the Melter? Why not the Trapster? Why Stiltman? And one night I was doing research, which is what comic book writers say they do when they are dicking around on the internet. And I came across this, which is the very first Spider-Man comic I ever bought, right? And I believe that on some level, somewhere, I imprinted on Stiltman as being the very portrait of evil in the Marvel Universe, right? They got no worse than this guy who kills Spider-Man. And when given the chance, well, I would kill him. You know, I would kill him for what he did to Spider-Man, to my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, who only wanted action for his reward. It's, believe it or not, it's not the stupidest thought I've ever had, and I kind of think this is the way our minds work. I mean, my mind might have more taints and bazookas than yours, but I think on some level, you know, when I write something, everything kind of starts with two questions: what happens and what's it about? And the answers don't need to be profound or really, if I'm being honest, particularly good, but they need to be addressed, they need to be thought about. And I started to wonder, well, what if I went way back to the very first comic I ever bought? Like, what kind of mysteries of the self might I find? Which brings us to the next slide. There we go. Batman 316. It's pretty awesome, right? Well, it's green and orange. It's like green and orange? Yeah. Dick Giordano drew it. I kind of relate. Great, Dick Giordano. Okay, we have to address the elephants in the room. Watch out for Crazy Quilt, the man who stole his eyes. mouth for a second. It's like if you could untangle Prince's glyph, it would make the... Why would you put those words in that corner? Apparently it didn't matter to me at 3.5, and that was all I needed to go vaulting into the story, which opens with this image. Oh, I gotta really work on the timing with this. There we go. Robin kicking a dude in the back. It gets a little tough with the viewer, so he is Robin, the teen wonder, and he has come home this night to Holocaust. Is Robin really the best teenager? Is he really qualified to handle the Holocaust? What's going on? Okay, so, well, shit, here we go, man. Holocaust, all right. It's kind of heavy. Okay, so the Jew tried to burn down the hospital. Which is shitty. Look, it's shitty. I don't know how big of a hospital it was to qualify for Holocaust status, but I mean, maybe he was kicking, maybe it's Goering? Maybe he was kicking Goering in the back? I don't know. It just the whole, here we go. Batman is on the scene, and he over there asks the question. Is the damage to the hospital extensive? Now, for a fucking detective. But this infernal algebra, this bleak calculus, this is what separates the Holocaust from the mere massacres, folks. The slaughters from the culls. Batman, we've braced ourselves. We're ready. How bad was it? Oh, there's mild smoke damage to the 10th floor. Holy Holocaust indeed, Batman! So here's the thing. My premise is completely off the fucking rails at this point. I have no idea what it was in this comic that I saw, and I am a sad panda. I cannot for the life of me find what compelled me to keep reading. And look, once Crazy Quilt actually shows up, he gets beaten by a polished metal tray. So I don't know, I don't get it. But there's a thing about comics and hospitals, for me anyway, that I thought maybe I'd talk about for a second. This is find our connecting tissue. Look for our premise again amongst the cindery ash of Gotham General. August 18th, 1984, my mother has a grand mal seizure. They don't call it grand mal seizures anymore, which is French for big bad, grand mal. So when you're an 8-year-old, that's what you want to hear a doctor say, is use big medical terms like big bad. Thanks, house. Anyway, my mom has a blood clot, and it turns into a whole thing, and there's brain surgery, and it paralyzes her completely on the right side of her body. Come on, slide projector, there we go. And she has to relearn how to write left-handed as a 34-year-old woman, and eventually regains a lot of her mobility at 85%, and wins an award. Apparently you get an award for regaining mobility after a profound brain injury. And so that was my summer when I was 8, and how was yours? But what I found in the gift shop was comics as a weekly entity. As I was there week after week, there were new comics every week. And what had always become peripheral became constant. And throughout the years, as I've gotten older, comics in my life have increased or decreased, ebbed and flowed and waxed and waned. I didn't write it, but thank you, it's a pretty great comic. But they never stopped. And years later, now that this is my job, when I tried to imagine what the worst thing I could do to Tony Stark in Iron Man, I came to profound brain injury because of my mom, because of having to live through it. And by the way, these images, I found out today, are available on t-shirts at Hot Topic. So if you'd like to commemorate my mom's traumatic brain injury, and the psychological damage it inflicted on me as an 8-year-old, please go to your local Hot Topic. And look, lots of us got into comics. I know, right? That's me, yeah, because they gave us escape. You know, they gave our thoughts speed or a freedom that they didn't have normally, because the world sort of sucked when you're 8 and your mom's in the fucking hospital. And there's immeasurable power in trawling for the answers to why and what if in that darkness. And ultimately, I think that's what comics ask of us all the time. But again, we're kind of here where it's sort of funny, but we're talking about moms and brain surgeries and stuff, and it's kind of sad, and it's a weird cul-de-sac we found ourselves in now. But tonally, that combination of dark and funny, of you know, good and evil, of crispy and chewy, one thing and another, right? This is ultimately our destination, because here's the thing, I love comics as long as I can remember. Since Batman 316, which when I was 3.5, I've loved them, and I realize it's because of that alchemy. And really, make no mistake, it is absolutely alchemy when you take language and drawings and put them together and synthesize them into comics, when they're observed by somebody who can inflict meaning on those images, and you can comprehend those pictures. And really, letters are pictures too. When you inflict that order, it is absolutely magic, and the reader becomes a co-conspirator in the story. It's what Scott McCloud calls closure, if you've ever read Understanding Comics. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's what my art school professor used to call active participation. It's what anybody just calls reading comics. I think it took me looking at this lousy Batman comic again to realize it wasn't the comic that I fell in love with, but rather it was what the comic actually did. Harvey Pekar just died. He made a book called American Splendor, and he's attributed to saying that comics are just words and pictures, and you can do anything with words and pictures. I don't know if he really said that or if it's just apocryphal, but I absolutely believe it. And between those 2 points, the infinite potential of comics to communicate and the power for them to just break our hearts or to resonate or to uplift us, I think that there's, I have to keep looking, because this thing's there, between the ridiculous and the sublime, that's life, right? It's dark, but it's funny. It's the joke you make at the funeral. It's beautiful, and it's horrible, and it's everything. It's like Bruce Lee says in Enter the Dragon, you know, what we need is emotional content, right? It's not just throwing a punch, it's what that punch means. Everything has to mean something, on some level, in the end. You know, whether, it doesn't have to just be Darkseid and Orion fighting. It can be the father and the son. Yes. Do you guys remember the day Bruce Lee invented hip-hop? It's free will fighting destiny, whatever function you need or can find at the exact time. The act of observing is the act of defining. Comics' ability to ask questions are only limited by our own ability to ask them of ourselves. Comics exist because of this binary experience. Whatever these 2 data fields are when overlapped and viewed from a distance, regardless of how concrete or abstract they might be, word and picture, here comes the rhythm part. Sign and signifier, myth and reality. Whatever you, the reader, when you view these simultaneously, you, the reader, create a 3rd channel of data that is entirely discrete and entirely personal and entirely your own. That data that you pluck from the quantum foam of idea space is comics. It's wholly and intrinsically unique to you. My Batman 316 will never be yours in spite of my attempts to inflict it on you. The mytho-poetic resonance that it has for me won't be for you. When you see this and see a shitty detective looking at a drawing of a hop scroll, I see a comic and I think about the smell of anesthetic on my mom's skin. It's never going to be your comic. It's mine is mine and yours is yours. It's there we go. It's a Hieronymus machine. It shouldn't work. It's a collection of parts and wishes, and it's folded in half and it sits on your table, but it works because of your belief in it. It works because of the will of the user. You have to find these data streams, parse them in your head, combine them, and observe the overlap. Comics are unique in that the flow of time is essential for the art to work. In other words, to work, a comic must be observed. A comic, any comic, is just a little pamphlet on the table until you turn it on. A Hieronymus machine, uncertainly approved by Heisenberg, and that's the wrong Heisenberg slide. There we go. for a comic to be engaged with requires observation, your active, dominant control over time itself, right? Batman can get older or younger, look, just as quick as I can push my thumb, from 316 to 616 in the blink of an eye. Now that took us all 20-some years to do, and it took me just that right there. Across the millennia of existence, in a comic book, you can suddenly find yourself at the dawn of time, back in the cave making art on the walls, like great-great-great-grandpappy Cornelius used to. Our earliest art was comics in this way. This was art that asked, what's happening and what's it about? Lascaux wasn't about capturing the pictorial essence of orc or bison. It was about hunting and survival. These were rituals. It was magic. These were prayers. We said, we are here, O God, and we matter, and please, please let my aim be true. This is our record. And then to seal the deal in the reverie, these hunters that had worked themselves into this sort of shamanistic state would charge the image and energize their prayers by stabbing the cave walls. Now, my son looks at a comic on my iPad and says, Spider-Man, I help you fight the rhino! And he starts to punch the screen. He stabs the paintings, right? He participates in the storytelling. To him, motherfucker. Right? It's not a rhino, it's not a story, it's an adventure. It's something that happens. It's something about something that he understands on a little 2-year-old level. We are here, O God, for even the briefest of moments, and for these moments, these are the miraculous things we see and can do. This is our love and our fear and our hate and our joy. This is everything we wanted. This is everything we were. These were our possibilities. These were our whys and our what-ifs. These are our stories, no matter how ridiculous. Thank you.